Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarios de Colombia. Then it became just a cover for the largest cocaine trafficking network in the world.
Is the FARC still active?
What did he do? He just went back and kidnapped a Colombian congresswoman. What he should have had was a fucking bullet between his eyes.
This happens all the time. I want you to educate the audience on who the FARC is.
Okay. Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarios de Colombia. Fuerzas is forces, Armed Revolutionary Forces of Colombia. So the FARC manifested itself in 1964, same year I was born, and led by a guy, a campesino called Tito Fio, which is fixed bullet or fixed shot. And in the late 50s and early 60s, when the whole communist plague was taking over Latin America, they were basically derivative of that. And you have to think about Colombia as two different countries at that time. Mm-hmm. You've got Bogota at 8,800 feet, where the wealthy and the political class lived. Then you had the rest of the country at sea level. No real infrastructure in the country to get and drive a truck here or there, mostly dirt. I'm painting 1964, right? So you had basically a campesino kind of working class, as they called it. You know, maybe the proletariat want to pronounce it that way, against the elite class that had the money, right? But then they also owned all the big ranches and property in the countryside. So the FARC came about as a way to maybe, or I would give them legitimacy there, to fight the political class and the elites for some fairness in the country. Definitely a class system, right? No doubt about it. But over the years, what infiltrated the FARC was the drug trade. So they became, I would say, I hate to use the word victims, but their revolution, you know, like any communist revolution is all a bunch of bullshit, right? You trade one ruling class for another, right? Mm-hmm. And it really, in the late 70s, when the cocaine trade started, and that became the big money, then it became just a cover for the largest cocaine trafficking network in the world. And that's all the FARC's about. It's all now that kid you've brainwashed is a 14-year-old campesino to become a guerrilla. He believes in the revolution. But there's an interesting thing when I got rescued in 2008. I saw a newspaper article that came out, and it showed the FARC leadership called the Secretariat, right? This was the brain trust, right? Where all their children were. Their kids weren't in the jungle. They were at universities in Europe and in Florida. I mean, and you've got these guys that are ultra wealthy and running this big cocaine trade. And so you had the Secretariat, then you had the Commandantes, and you have different fronts, right, around the country that were divvied up. And so it just manifested itself into a type of cancer, I think. And what was once a revolution that I think they actually believed in. Now, from a certain level below, those worker bees believed in the revolution. But the ones up top, I mean, they were just corrupted with their own money.
Yeah.
My belief. I think many people support that.
Is the FARC still active?
Yes. This is what's sad. So, let me see, 8 years ago, we had a peace process. No, 9 years ago. So President Uribe, who was a hardline right-wing guy, basically brought the FARC to their knees. Then the president that followed him decided to have a peace process, which they'd failed before. So we take the leadership to Cuba. They get fanfare. Some of our major politicians go down there, and they negotiated a peace process. And I don't know what the number was, maybe 20,000 or so. They turned in their arms and they came out of the jungle, all right? But they really didn't do that. Some groups stayed and refused to turn themselves in. The FARC were promised 6 seats, I think. Now I can be off on this number, in the Colombian Congress, called a curul. So you take these guys out, you forgive them of crimes against humanity, then you put them in the Congress.
Wow.
And, this whole peace deal was...
When was this?
Gosh, FARC peace deal. This would be 10 years ago, 14 and 15, I think. So I'll never forget, Kerry's going to go down there and talk to him, and other people are going to talk to him. And I just saw our politicians going, man, you guys know nothing about these guys. And this, it's just kind of like the Taliban being a B team, right? And I was up in D.C. and I did an interview, and I can't remember if it was on CNN or Fox, but one of our senators, very famous, and he's deceased now and was a POW from Arizona. I don't want to disparage him, but he was making comments about the FARC and the peace deal, and I was on CNN, and I shot back at him and said, hey, would you like to debate this? Or could I at least talk to you? I don't know who's briefing you. And he wouldn't do a debate with me or even anything. CNN tried to get us to do it together. But the thing was, he was so far out of base and some of the things that Kerry said, I was like, who are you talking to? What's going on? And so it was disappointing to see that peace process. People that should be in jail for life at a minimum get forgiven, but I get it was for a greater good. Well, now what they call the dissidents fled back to the jungle and restarted the FARC. But now they're splintered. So they're not as powerful as they once were, but they're still there. And now we have an ultra-liberal government that believes in this talk stuff, right? And it just buys them time. And so the FARC dissidency is what they call it, has grown. And you can look up a guy named Mordisco right now is one of them. He's in leadership. They're backed by popular demand, And so it's just a cycle. I think the peace process gave a lot of FARC members a chance to escape the jungle, some of the young people. But in my capture, there's a guy, we all had nicknames, right? But he was a guy who had us in the jungle personally for longest. His name was Goffus. So when we got captured and he was captured, our government tried to extradite him, but the Colombian government wouldn't play ball. So Goffus was put into jail. He was released under the peace process. And the liberal president down there now wanted to make him a special envoy to the FARC dissidents, right? What did he do? He just went back and kidnapped a Colombian congresswoman. I just went back to his old tricks. He was just on the news a few months ago. And it was sickening to me to see this guy that was in handcuffs, right, next to the helicopter after our rescue, sitting up like this to a female congresswoman saying, don't come back here again. Just released. And now he's el secuestro. He's kidnapping people again. What he should have had was a fucking bullet between his eyes.
This shit happens all the time. Look at all the people we've released from Gitmo.
These are not good people. I
don't understand it.
I worked at Northrop Grumman with an interesting character. Former 82nd Airborne, one-star Harry Axon. God rest his soul. He's buried in Arlington right now. And he made a comment because he was asking me about some of the leadership down there, and he was our corporate lead up there for SOCOM. And I had a picture of him when he went into Panama. He was sitting behind Noriega's desk holding his sword. And I said, Harry, what's your opinion? And he just looked at me and said, Keith, unfortunately, some people just need killing. And it wasn't animosity, it wasn't with anger, but he was just like, these people are just going to do what they're going to do, right? So what do we do? I guess on the right of being human and humane, you want to maybe give them the benefit of the doubt or whatever it is, right? But some people are just murderers, man. And that's just, they're never going to change. And we have this way of always hoping to negotiate with the unnegotiable.
Yeah. Never seemed to learn a lesson.
I don't understand it.
How many people were involved in the FARC at the time? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. We've heard different numbers, right? I think they were probably maybe more than 30,000 strong at the height. So there's a very famous takedown of a post called Me Too. So the Colombian police and soldiers that were in captivity with us, the majority of them were taken from Me Too. Way down south, There was no way for the Colombian military to really get down there. And they were much weaker. This is before Plan Colombia, right? They were much weaker then. So a few thousand FARC surround an outpost, man, and just start killing and capturing them. And at one time in the Despeje, right, in the Despeje, the FARC had over 400 police and soldiers in captivity.
Are you serious?
400. Now imagine this. Imagine this. Let's just say in this county in Tennessee, you had 400 American men and women in captivity because you were some security force. And the government or the state of Tennessee had given it a Despeje, like, it was much bigger than this. Like, I think it was the size of Rhode Island. And on the night, American families have to see their own kids and grown men behind fences in their own country as they negotiate. And then we have American CEOs and business people wanting to do business with the FARC and flying down there and visiting them. And they just gave them their own state. So what did they do? They just used that to grow stronger.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.